democratic decentralization and emergence of Panchayati Raj institutions in India. Introduction. Democracy is considered as one of the best forms of government because it ensures liberty of thought, expression, belief, faith and worship, equality of status and opportunity, fraternity, as well as the right to participate in political decision making. Participation and control of governance by the people of the country is the essence of democracy. Such participation is possible only when the powers of the state are decentralized to the district, block and village levels, where all the sections of the people can sit together, discuss their problems and suggest solutions and plan, execute as well as monitor the implementation of the programs. It is called the crux of democratic decentralization. Now let us discuss about the objectives of this lesson. Number 1, to discuss about the concept of democratic decentralization, significance of democratic decentralization and democratic decentralization in India. Number 2, to discuss about the contents of 73rd Constitutional Amendment Act, which has mentioned about the structure, composition, functions and powers of the Panchayati Raj institutions. Now let us discuss about the concept of democratic decentralization. The words democratic and decentralization form the key to the understanding of the expression democratic decentralization. The word democratic explains the nature and purpose of the concept, as also its basic claims in an institutional setup. The word decentralization is essentially indicative of the method to realize the end as contained in the word democratic. Decentralization means transfer of planning, decision making or administrative authority from the central government to its field organizations, local administrative units, semi-autonomous organizations, local governments or non-governmental organizations. In simple, under decentralization, authority is not concentrated at the center. It is distributed to smaller administrative units. The term democratic decentralization means grant of authority by a superior to a subordinate as a right to be enjoyed by the subordinate and not as a concession. Thus, democratic decentralization is an extension of the democratic principle, aims at widening the area of the people's participation, authority and autonomy through dispersion or devolution of powers to people's representative organizations from the top level to the lowest levels in all the three dimensions of political decision making, financial control and administrative management, with least interference and control from higher levels. The expression democratic decentralization is to be distinguished from administrative decentralization. Democratic decentralization is wider than administrative decentralization. Democratic decentralization envisages association of more and more people with government at all levels, national, regional and local. Democratic decentralization stands for people's right to initiate their own projects for local well-being and the power to execute and operate them in an autonomous manner. Now let us discuss the significance of democratic decentralization. Decentralization leads to the empowerment of the local people through deconcentration and devolution. Decentralized governance seeks to tap local initiatives and practices by involving grassroots organizations such as self-help groups. Representative democracy and participatory democracy both become possible through decentralized governance. Another important feature of decentralized governance is interactive policy making, which leads to decentralized decision making. Interactive policy is a process where government and non-governmental sectors such as private sector, non-governmental organizations, communities, grassroots organizations, pressure groups all participate in decision making so as to influence issues and suggest alternatives. Therefore, decentralized governance is an alternative strategy of development which is people-centered, participatory and bottom-up development mechanism. Now let us discuss the democratic decentralization in India. Grassroots governance has been a major concern of the planning process in India ever since the introduction of Panchayati Raj in 1959. The spirit of democratic decentralization that evolved over the years is being practiced only in a limited way. It is realized that development efforts in India did not address the issues of equity and to the development of the poor. Therefore, there is a need to redirect development efforts towards the poor and those at the grassroots. The 73rd and 74th Constitutional Amendment Acts have been major steps in the direction of decentralized governance in India. The 73rd Constitutional Amendment Act relates to introduce reforms in rural local bodies, whereas the 74th Constitutional Amendment Act relates to bring reform in urban local bodies. These amendments have accorded constitutional recognition to rural and urban local bodies. The Acts aims at integrating the concept of people's participation in a formal way with the planning process on the one hand and the devolution of responsibility to the people themselves on the other. These acts have addressed the persistent problems of irregular elections, suppression, inadequate representation, insufficient devolution of powers, lack of administrative and financial autonomy, and inadequate resources. After independence, rural development forms the crux of India's development strategy. Rural development programs aim at the improvement of the living standards of the rural poor by providing them opportunities for the optimum utilization of their potential through active participation in the development process. Development programs have a better chance of success when the target group and the general public participate in the various stages of the developmental decision-making process. In order to improve the participation of rural people in the process of development and involvement in decision-making and decentralized planning, the Government of India has made 73rd Constitutional Amendment in 1992 to provide constitutional recognition to Panchayat Raj institutions. Now let us discuss the Constitution 73rd Amendment Act 1992. The 73rd Constitutional Amendment inserts a new part after Part 8 called Part 9 and a new schedule called Schedule 11 in the Constitution. It consists of articles from 243 to 243O. Now number 1, Gram Sabha. It defines Gram Sabha as a body consisting of persons registered in the electoral rolls relating to a village within the area of a panchayat at the village level. The Gram Sabha may exercise such powers and perform such functions as may be provided by law by the state. This is according to Article 243A. Now second one is Constitution of Panchayats. It defines panchayat as an institution of self-government constituted under Article 243B for the rural areas. Panchayat shall be constituted at the village, intermediate and district levels. However, panchayats at intermediate level are not mandatory in states having population less than 20 lakhs. This is according to Article 243B. Then third aspect is composition of panchayats. The composition of panchayats will be provided by law by the state legislature. These panchayats shall be elected from within the panchayat area through territorial constituencies. Members of the panchayat shall be elected directly by the members of the Gram Sabha. The territorial constituencies shall be created in such a manner that the ratio between the population of each constituency and the number of seats allotted to it shall, so far as practicable, be the same throughout the panchayat areas. The state by law can make provision for the representation of the head of the panchayat of the village in the panchayat at the intermediate or district level as the case may be, or the representation of the head of the panchayat at the intermediate level, in the panchayat at the district level. The state can also make provision for giving representation to MPs, MLAs or MLCs in the panchayats at different levels falling within their constituencies. The chairperson and members of the panchayat shall have the right to vote at its meetings. The chairpersons of the panchayats at the intermediate or district levels shall be elected by and from amongst their own members. But the manner of election of the head of the village panchayat has been left to be provided by each state. This is according to Article 243C. Then now the fourth aspect is reservation of seats. Article 243D provides for reservation of seats in panchayats at all levels, that is village level, intermediate level and district level, for scheduled castes, scheduled tribes and women. The seats to be reserved for scheduled castes and scheduled tribes in each panchayat shall be in proportion to their respective population in the area of that panchayat. 1/3 of such reserved seats shall be earmarked for the women of the scheduled castes and scheduled tribes. 1/3 of the total number of directly elected seats, including the reserved seats as above, shall be reserved for women. Also, 1/3 of the offices of the chairpersons shall be reserved for women. The reservation for scheduled castes and scheduled tribes will come to an end at the expiry of 60 years from the commencement of the constitution. Then fifth, duration of panchayats. Every panchayat shall have a term of 5 years unless dissolved earlier. The elections to each panchayat shall be held before the expiry of the term of that panchayat. If a panchayat has been dissolved earlier, the elections to the next panchayat must be completed before the expiry of 6 months from the time of its dissolution. This is according to Article 243E. Then sixth aspect is powers, authority and responsibilities of panchayats. Powers and authority of the panchayats may be laid down by the law of the state legislature to enable them function as institutions of self-government. Such law shall devolve powers and responsibilities upon panchayats at different levels. This will be subject to conditions which may be specified in that law with respect to A. The preparation of plans for economic development and social justice. B. The implementation of schemes for economic development and social justice as may be entrusted to them, including those in relation to the matters listed in the 11th schedule. This is according to Article 243G. Seventh aspect is powers to impose taxes by and funds of the panchayats. The state legislature may authorize a panchayat to levy, collect and appropriate taxes, duties, tolls and fees. It can also lay down the procedure and limits of such taxes and levies. The state government may also assign to the panchayats taxes and duties levied and collected by it for certain purposes and may impose limits and conditions upon it. The state may also provide for grants in aid to the panchayats out of the consolidated fund of the state. The state can also create funds like consolidated fund for the panchayats. This is according to Article 243H. Then eighth point is constitution of finance commissions to review financial position. The Article 243I empowers the governor of the state to appoint a finance commission within 1 year of this amendment and after every 5 years thereafter to review the financial position of the panchayats and to make recommendations to the governor regarding principles to govern A. The distribution of taxes, duties, tolls and fees between the state and the panchayats and determine the shares of panchayats at different levels. B. The taxes, tolls, fees which may be assigned to the panchayats appropriated by them. C. The grants in aid to be given to the panchayats from the consolidated fund of the state. The Finance Commission will also recommend the measures needed to improve the financial position of the panchayats or any other measure referred by the governor in the interest of sound finances of the panchayats. The qualifications of the members of the Finance Commission and the manner of their appointment shall be laid down by the state legislature. The governor shall lay on the table of the state legislature the report of the commission along with memorandum as to what action has been taken on the report. The ninth aspect is audit of accounts of panchayats. The state legislature may by law make provision regarding the maintenance and audit of accounts of the panchayats. This is according to Article 243J. Then 10th aspect is elections to the panchayats. Subject to the provisions of the Constitution of India, the state by law will make provision regarding all matters relating to the elections of the panchayats. Article 243K vests all powers of superintendence, direction and control of the conduct of elections of panchayats and preparation of electoral rolls thereof in a state election commission. The commission shall consist of an election commissioner to be appointed by the governor, who can lay down the terms of his service, but it is subject to a law which may be made by the state legislature. The terms and conditions of service of the election commissioner cannot be varied to his disadvantage once he has been appointed. He cannot be removed from service except in a manner and on the grounds provided for the removal of a judge of the High Court under the Constitution. It is mandatory for the governor, when requested by the state election commissioner, to make available to him such staff as may be necessary to discharge his functions. 11th aspect is that 11th schedule. Article 243C mentions the subjects which this amendment assigns to the panchayats. These subjects are provided in the 11th schedule, which is added to the Constitution. These subjects are: number 1, agriculture, including agricultural extension; number 2, land improvement, implementation of land reforms, land consolidation and soil conservation; number 3, minor irrigation, water management and watershed development; 4th, animal husbandry, dairying and poultry; 5, fisheries; 6th, social forestry and farm forestry; 7th, minor forest produce; 8th, small scale industries including food processing industries; 9th, khadi, village and cottage industries; then 10th, rural housing; then 11th, drinking water; 12th, fuel and fodder; 13th, roads, culverts, bridges, ferries, waterways and other means of communication; 14th, rural electrification including distribution of electricity; then 15th, non-conventional energy sources; 16th, poverty alleviation program; 17th, education including primary and secondary schools; 18th, technical training and vocational education; 19th, adult and non-formal education; 20th, libraries; 21st, cultural activities; 22, markets and fairs; 23, health and sanitation including hospitals, primary health centers and dispensaries; 24th, family welfare; 25th, women and child development. 26th, social welfare, including welfare of the handicapped and mentally retarded. 27th, welfare of the weaker sections and in particular of the scheduled castes and the scheduled tribes. 28th, public distribution system. 29th, maintenance of community assets. Summary. Today, decentralization and democracy are the most significant themes in the development discourse. Decentralization means transfer of planning, decision making, or administrative authority from the central government to its field agencies. Democratic decentralization is an extension of the democratic principle, aims at widening the area of the people's participation, authority, and autonomy through devolution of powers to people's representative organizations. Today, democratic decentralization is a global phenomenon. In India, 73rd and 74th Constitutional Amendment Acts have widened the scope of democratic decentralization both in rural and urban areas. These acts have institutionalized people's participation through Gram Sabhas and ward committees. A noteworthy feature of these amendments is an emergence of a new generation leadership at the local level from women and marginalized sections of the society. The amendments have contributed to bring substantive democracy at local level.